going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down scaling meta ads. So Facebook, Instagram, everything to do with meta, the things you need to understand depending on which point of your process you're in. Are you testing? Are you collecting data? Are you optimizing? Are you scaling? So we're going to talk about all of these different steps and how you can scale your meta ads using the exact same methods that I've used to scale my meta ads to millions of dollars in sales using these frameworks. So without any further ado, let's jump into the video. All right, so let's go over scaling meta ads and figuring out what works for you. So the first and most important thing is finding out what works in your ad account and doing more of what's working. Do more of what's working should always be your motto, and never getting stuck following just one, strategy that somebody's talking about or, system to use. You have to figure out what works for you as a media buyer and inside your ad account, and then continue doing more of what's working. And that's the difference between testing and scaling. Testing is figuring out what works, and scaling is doing more of what's working. And that is it. So simplify the process, break it down, figure out what works for you, and do more of it. So let's first talk about testing. So testing is figuring out, again, what works for you in your ad account. Now, there's a few things that we can look at to test when we want to talk about testing, right? So the first and most important thing is you have to be testing your product concept, right? So the first thing that you might be testing is your product, right? If you're testing a new product, you have to figure out what product is going to work in the algorithm. Now, I talk about products working in the algorithm, and a lot of people talk about products working in the market, because you might find products that have the potential to sell and might have a good market fit, but if the algorithm doesn't pick it up and push that product, you're not going to be able to bring in sales. So it's less about thinking about what products I can sell in the big market and more so figuring out what products I can push in the algorithm and what's the algorithm going to like, right? We have to please the algorithm. We have to sell products to an algorithm and think of it that way rather than selling products to a market. And that's the best way that you can set yourself up for success. So some of the things that go into products that the algorithm likes are, one, products that are in demand. That's the most important thing. Two, products that have great creatives. Three, products that get good engagement, products that get good conversion rates when you're actually, advertising and selling. So these are things that the algorithm is looking for when pushing your products. So these are things that you want to be thinking about, right? So you might be testing products, right? You might also be testing creatives or angles, right? So you can test different angles with your creatives. And by angles, I mean if you're selling a specific product that might have mass appeal and different types of people might use it, you can test different angles of different types of people, maybe different problems that it solves, maybe different desires that product has, and you can create those desires and solutions to problems using the creative that you're testing, right? So you might be testing creatives. The other thing is that you might be testing audiences, right? So a big push for moving into 2024 is opening up your audiences, going broad, going with big interests, and letting Facebook do its thing. So you might test different audiences such as, different, you might test out different interests. You might test out broad audiences. You might test advantage shopping campaigns. And there's a couple different audiences that you can be testing, but just to basically pinpoint that, the ones that we want to be focusing on are interests when initially starting, broad targeting, which is no interests, and advantage shopping campaigns, which is, again, broad interests with basically broad on steroids. So these are some of the things that you want to be thinking about that you're going to be testing when you're initially launching products or testing new concepts or trying to scale, right? So these are kind of the key three that you're going to be focused on is either testing products, testing your creatives or angles, or testing different audiences and structures within your campaigns to figure out what works in your ad account and start to scale that and do more of what's working. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about testing structure. And what I'm doing a lot these days and what's working for me in my ad account, so I'm doing more of that, is CBOs. So I'm testing a lot with CBOs in comparison to ABOs, so campaign budget optimization over ABOs, right? So I'm not testing as much with ABOs. I'm not doing a lot of split testing with ad set budgets. Everything I'm doing is with CBOs. I'm finding them to be more stable. I'm finding them to be more consistent and more efficient with my budget. So whenever I'm testing something new, and I want to talk about the pocket theory or the pockets of audiences when testing, right? So CBOs are great because you can take your concepts, pop them into multiple pockets of an audience, of a structure, and let Facebook optimize around that, right? So one of the best structures that I like using for testing, and say you're testing a product, right, would be using a CBO, and then you would be putting your 3 to 5 interests, if you're going to be interest testing, in 5 or 3 to 5 different ad sets in that CBO, setting your budget at the campaign level. So say you're running a $100 a day campaign budget and you're letting Facebook optimize towards those different interests. So in each of these ad sets, you're going to have one interest, right? You're also going to have multiple creatives. So typically 3 to 5 creatives is what I like to put in. And really important is it's not as important in the beginning, but separating your creatives by creative type. So segmenting them by either images, videos, or if you're running carousels, separating those two, because every creative type has a different, share of the auction. So what I mean by that is if you're running images and videos, there's different people on the platform that react differently to images over videos, or videos over images, or videos over carousels, for example, right? So separating those is going to give you more efficiency when you're testing your different creatives. So if I'm running a product that can be sold with image ads, I'm going to run image ads in a separate campaign than I would with video ads. If I am running a product that needs video ads, I'm going to run a separate campaign with just the video ads and separate them from the image ads. So separating creatives by creative type is very, very important, because what you'll notice is that if you mix and match images with videos, for example, your videos will start to take more of the budget compared to your image ads. And it's not necessarily that the videos are performing better than your images. It's because the engagement that those videos are getting in comparison to images might be a little bit higher, which is deeming in the algorithm that it's doing better, which sometimes isn't the case. And that's why you always want to separate it, right? So if you think like, if you're scrolling on social media and you see an image, you might look at that image for a couple seconds, then either scroll or click on that. But if you're watching a video, and say the video is 20 seconds long and you're watching 5 to 10 seconds of that video, Facebook is going to deem that video as having a higher engagement ranking because users are spending more time watching that video in comparison to the image. But it doesn't mean that that video is necessarily a better performing creative when it comes to conversions, right? So that's why we want to separate our types of creatives by campaigns and not mix and match. And it's going to make things a lot more efficient for you. So just keep that in mind. You're also going to be potentially testing with DCTs, so dynamic creative testing. This is another way that you can test creatives if you don't want to split test by just adding multiple creatives into your ad sets. You can also just run one dynamic creative test and let Facebook optimize, and then pinpoint which of your creatives in the dynamic creative test is doing best, and then take the post IDs from there and start to scale up. So let's talk more about that. So I want to break things down into a simple process for you to understand what things you want to be testing when you're in the testing phase, and then when you want to move into the data collection and optimization phase. So the first thing that you want to be testing out, and something that you can just keep as a rule of thumb, is you want to run interest testing, you want to run broad testing, and you want to run creative testing. So these three testing structures, or three different components that you're going to be testing, is one, going to figure out what is performing best in your ad account, split between interests or broad. Typically I see either one or the other in the beginning is going to outperform the other one, which will allow you to focus in on that when you move into creative testing. So you first want to find out, okay, are broad interests and pointing Facebook in an interested direction towards that target audience going to perform better than just leaving it wide open and letting Facebook figure that out for you, and figuring that out before you move into testing creatives and angles. So once you've figured that out, so say for example, we've tested both, maybe you're running a new ad account and interests are performing better than broad targeting for you in the beginning, right? You can always test broad targeting down the line and see if you perform better with broad targeting once you've got more data in your account. But say, for example, we've got interests that are doing well and we're running them in CBOs. We figured out that maybe we found 1 to 3, high performing interests that are optimizing very, very well, that are starting to become profitable, and we want to do some creative testing. So what you would do here is you would take your best interest or your best interests and then test creatives based on that audience. So you first want to narrow down your audience and figure out which audience is doing well, and then move into creative testing and figuring out which creatives that are going to be performing best that you can then scale up. So that's kind of like the 3-step process. Is you first want to figure out your audience, then figure out your best creatives matched with that audience, and then take that matchup and start to scale that and move into the data collection phase or the optimization phase. So let's talk about that. All right, so we have now figured out at this point in time, we've got a proven product, right? We've got proven audiences, right? So we figured out our audience type, maybe our locations, our countries, our interests, maybe going broad. We figured out our proven audiences, and we have figured out our proven creatives. So just to pinpoint this, is you do not need a million creatives to scale. You really only need to start moving into the data collection phase or the optimization phase is 1 to 5 strong performing creatives. Now I've done this with 1 creative, I've done this with 3 creatives, I've done this with 5, I've even done it with more, but you really only need a good solid 1 to 5 creatives that you can capture their post IDs. Very, very important is using post IDs and move them to your scaling campaigns or your data collection campaigns is what I would call them initially once we are collecting more data on the account. Because at the end of the day, the more data you have in your account, the easier and more efficient it is to scale, right? It's just like anything else. The more data you have on something, the easier the algorithm is to be able to find you consistent buyers each and every day profitably. So that's our whole goal. Is figure out our proven 3, move them into data collection or scaling campaigns to start collecting more and more data at a profitable or even break-even rate. And it's totally fine if in the beginning you're breaking even. You are literally collecting free data that's going to help you scale more aggressively in the future. So let's talk more about that and what that looks like. Okay, so typically what campaign structure I like to use when collecting more data or moving into the data collection phase is again a CBO. So I'm going to draw it out here. So say this is our campaign. We've got a CBO campaign. What I'm going to do is just test 3 to 5 pockets. Typically 3 is where I find the sweet spot. And I'm going to, and what I mean by pockets are ad sets, right? So you're going to have 3 ad sets, all targeting the top interest or potentially broad if that worked better for you, but I'm just going to use interest. So say you found your best interest, you're going to put that exact same interest in each of these ad sets. So all you're doing is you're testing 3 different pockets of that interest audience to give this CBO a little bit more room for optimizing, because we have to remember that CBOs, they are machine learning at the campaign level and diversifying your budget accordingly to which pockets of the audience or which ad set is optimizing and getting the better result. So you'll typically notice that 1 or 2 out of the 3 of these pockets is what we're calling them start to optimize a bit more efficiently than the other, and most of your budget will start to get segmented to those ad sets because the CBO is starting to learn, right? Starting to optimize and collect more efficient data. So in each of these ad sets, you are going to take your single best or top 3, typically that's all you need, ads, and popping them into this campaign. And really important again is we're taking the post IDs of your original ads that you were testing, right? Because when you're initially testing, you're just setting up a normal ad. And these are now your ads that are performing the best, but you're taking their post IDs and popping them into here. So you'll have 3 ads all using different post IDs. And the reason why we want to use post IDs, and not enough people talk about this, is because you are collecting engagement. So your engagement is basically your currency in the algorithm for performance of ads. Facebook is a user platform, meaning it's here to engage with its users, right? It's here to make the users happy. So their way of understanding what's working in that sense is engagement, right? So your ads will now start to collect comments, they'll now start to get likes, maybe shares, and start to collect engagement on your ads. So if you're using the post IDs, it's going to make sure that all of the engagement that you're getting from the ads is all going towards the same post ID, which is going to get you so much more engagement on your ads, which is going to rank you higher in the engagement rate ranking, the quality rate ranking, and potentially the conversion rate ranking of your ads, which are all really, really important things to make sure that you're optimizing for by using post IDs. So you're going to get more engagement. You're also going to be able to push your ads further and with more longevity, right? So longer, because you're basically building up a behemoth of an ad the more you're spending on this post ID, collecting more and more and more and more engagement and creating a snowball effect for your ads. It's one of the ways that I've been able to run, the same ads for literally years, months to years, using post IDs. So if you're not already using post IDs, I hope that you're going to be using post IDs moving forward. And if you have any questions about anything that I'm going over in this video, just drop them down in the comments down below. I'll be able to answer those questions for you as soon as I get them. Also, again, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you're subscribed so you can get access to these videos first before anybody else. And also smash that like button because it helps me more than get this out to more people and keeps me motivated to make free content like this for all of you guys here on the channel. So anyways, let's get into the rest of it. All right, guys, let's talk about scaling, something that all of you guys are probably here wanting to hear more about. And one of the more complex things when it comes to Facebook ads. It doesn't have to be complex. A lot of people make it overcomplicated, and I'm here to kind of break that down for you. So when you're thinking about scaling, let's go back to what I had said before. You are doing more of what's working, right? Testing is trying new things, something that maybe you haven't tested before. Maybe it's new creatives, new angles, new audiences. Scaling is literally taking what's working best for you, using your best audiences, your best creatives with post IDs, and your best campaign structures, and spending more money. That's literally it. Now, there's a couple ways that you can spend more money, and I'm going to break those down. So the first and most important, or the first way, would be the more conservative way. So this way is the way that I'm going to suggest because 1, it's more consistent, 2, it's a little bit safer, and 3, it's better for building longevity inside your accounts and with your brands, so on and so forth. And it's what a lot of people call horizontal scaling. So it's basically scaling by not touching your campaigns, but just doing more of them, right? So you can scale by duplication, which is quote unquote horizontal. So say you had a CBO, right? The same structure that we were saying before, and it was performing very, very well. And say you were running it at $100 a day. You can scale it horizontally by duplicating it, the exact same campaign, same structure, same everything, just at a higher budget and testing a new budget tier, right? So I talk about budget tiers because you'll typically find a sweet spot with your campaigns depending on the performance and strength of your product, your offer, and all the other things that we've talked about in this video. You'll find a sweet spot with that budget. So you might test at say $100 that's doing really, really well. You might scale horizontally and dupe it into a $200 a day campaign. It does very, very well. And then say you dupe it again and you try it at a $500 budget, right? Using the exact same setup as before, so on and so forth. And you might find that this underperforms. You might find that your cost per acquisition starts to skyrocket. Your return on ad spend isn't really keeping up to what you need it to be profitable. And you might find that, okay, maybe this budget isn't the best budget to be setting my campaign at, especially when you're using the horizontal method where you're duplicating and re-optimizing, right? So in that case, a lot of people go, oh, I can't scale, I don't know what's going on. And it's simply that you might want to stay in this budget range of $200 a day campaigns based on everything that you're using and what you've found to be working so far. And that's totally fine. And what you can do from there actually is just do more of that, right? So if you're gonna start scaling and you can do more within this budget range, right? So say you're gonna start scaling again, and you might just do more $200 a day campaigns with the same structure. Both of these at 200, right? So in this sense, you're technically spending $400 a day. It's just segmented between two different campaigns rather than trying to push everything into one campaign. Typically why this happens sometimes is, again, based on the strength of your product and all of the other assets that we had talked about, and Facebook's ability to find you consistent buyers. Because if you're increasing your budgets, you're putting more pressure on Facebook to consistently find you buyers at a profitable rate, basically just trying to keep up with your KPIs, right? Your key performance indicators and what you need to hit to be profitable with your numbers, right? So you're almost putting a little bit too much stress on Facebook to consistently find you buyers based on your product strength. And sometimes it's better to cut back the budget and do more campaigns in that sense. And what will happen is you will start to stack up multiple campaigns inside your ad account. I don't care what other videos you see out there talking about the one campaign structure or doing less campaigns, one campaign and just scaling it up. This is a lot safer, more consistent, and can be a more profitable way to do this month after month and build longevity and consistency in your business. So that's one way to scale. All right, guys, if you want to learn the other methods of how to go more aggressive with your scaling and learn how to set up these campaigns and structures like in-depth, step-by-step, I want to invite you to join our private e-com group. The link is going to be down in the description. This is where you're going to be able to ask me questions, get answers to your questions every single day on the day, connect with other community members. You're going to get access to our video course and so much more inside of this community. So that's where you're going to be able to get access to the rest of this video and other videos breaking down everything that we've talked about and even more. And again, guys, if you got any value from this video, I just want to ask that you smash that like button down below, as it helps keep me motivated to continue making these videos for all of you guys. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, click that subscribe button, get subscribed so that you can be the first to access these videos and learn all of these methods step by step right away. And again, I hope to see you guys inside that group so we can chat more together there and take your business to that next level. So we'll see you guys in the next one.